and welcome back to Booked with Juby. My name's Julie, and in today's video, we're going to go over my January reads. Okay, let's get to it. So if you watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I had started off the new year with Throne of Glass series. Actually, it was on book 6, which is Tower of Dawn. And if you've read the series before, then you'll know that this book actually was written simultaneously at the same time as the plot line of Empire Storms. I was not happy about this. I did not know that. And when I first started this book, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, Empire Storms ended on this crazy cliffhanger. And then I got to read this? Like, you're joking. So at first, needless to say, I was kind of bored. And I was like, I don't want to do this. By the end, though, glad I read it because it did bring in a different point of view, and it did set up the next book quite well. So for this one, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars just because these weren't my favorite characters and not my favorite point of views. Like, Kale's fine, but if you know, you know. Nesrine's okay too. Irene's a nice character, but really, like, after Empire of Storms, I was like, what are you doing? So I'm not going to talk too much about the plot of this book or the next book, just because with the Throne of Glass series, this is a series and these are the last 2 books, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. Okay, so the next one I read was Kingdom of Ash, and this book, she thick, okay? Like, Tower of Dawn's big too, and it's like over 600, almost 700 pages. This one's 1,000 pages, so in my delusion, if you watched any of my other videos, I had said I wanted to read a whole bunch of books in January, but I don't know what I was thinking because truly, I think I was on that holiday craze from December because I had to go back to work. And 1,000 pages is not a little bit of reading. Like, this took me some time and I put some effort into it. But like I said, I'm not going to go too much into the plot of it, but what I will tell you is 5-star for me. I love Throne of Glass. I might even like it better than ACOTAR. I don't know. I might also just be a little biased because I just was so into this for the last like December, January months that I don't know. I just honestly, I couldn't put it down. I was obsessed. When I tell you I bawled my eyes out, I bawled my eyes out. It was not okay. No, not okay. But anyway, if you haven't read the Throne of Glass series or any Sarah J. Maas books, I highly recommend reading them. I actually read them Throne of Glass first. No, sorry, I'm a liar. I read them ACOTAR first, then I read Crescent City, and then I read Throne of Glass. And the only reason it took me a while to read Throne of Glass is because, honestly, it's 7 books, and I was a little intimidated, so I was putting it off. But I don't know. I definitely got in a bit of a reading slump after this. I'm still a little bit, to be honest with you. I've read some books after this, but I miss it. I'm sad. I loved it. I didn't want to leave this world. And I need like a few more books to get me out of there. Okay, so the next book I read is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I decided to go with this book because I felt like after Throne of Glass, I needed, a nice palette cleanser. And I thought a cute little rom-com, Emily Henry. I'd read Beach Read before, loved it. And I thought that's a cute, perfect read. So this book is so cute. It follows Poppy and Alex. They're your best friends, so it's the best friend trope. And it just follows them as they go on all these vacations every year. And it flashes back from the present and the past. And it was a good read. It was cute. I'm glad I read it. I liked Beach Read better, but I didn't mind this one. I think I gave this one a 4 stars, but really, for me, it was more like a 3.5 star 4. When I do half-star ratings, truly, I'll round up just because I want to give it a little more credit, but I really enjoyed it. It was a fun read. Highly recommend it. Okay, so after that, I just wanted something short and easy and simple. I didn't want another big boy, so I decided to read some Freida. And with Freida, the thing about Freida is that her books are really fast-paced. So I started with The Inmate by Freida McFadden. This book is really good. It follows Brooke Sullivan, and basically her boyfriend tried to kill her when she was in high school, and she finds herself working at the jail that he got sent to years and years later. I don't want to ruin too much about it because it is a thriller, so you don't want to ruin too many details, but the twist in this was good. I liked it. I had fun with it. Freida books, they're fast paced, they're fun. They're not meant to be these complex, crazy things. They're supposed to be fun, quick stories. So I know some people aren't fans of hers, but truly I'm like, they're good. They're good palate cleansers. They're fun. They're quick. They're easy. The twists are usually you can't see them coming. So I don't know. I'm a Freida fan. And then to end off the month, just because I did want to squeeze one more book in and I didn't want to start a huge, crazy series, I started one by one. Now, today is January 31st. I'm about 70% done this book. By the end of the day, I will have finished it. So I'm counting it as a January read. So far, I really like it. Again, fast paced. We follow Claire and then Anonymous as they go. She's having some relationship troubles with her husband, and they go on a trip with 5 other people, all couples, and they end up getting lost in the woods. So I'll leave it at that, but so far it's so good. Again, with Freida, like, they're not these complex, crazy thrillers. They're just, I know thrillers aren't necessarily fun, but they're fun. They're fast paced, which like short chapters, you can just fly through them, and just enjoyable. Like, it's just a easy read, a good read, and it's exactly what you need if you're kind of in a reading slump, because it's just like it just gets you going. You're like, okay, I actually want to read this. Like, what's going to happen in the next chapter? So highly recommend that one. All right, so for my January recap, I obviously read 5 physical books. Loved them all, had a great time with all of them, but I also am an audiobook lover. Now, this month I read 3 audiobooks, or 3.5 if you want to count them, and we'll get into that. But before we get into that, let's talk about audiobooks. Do you count them as reading or not? And what I think truly is, do what makes you happy. If you want to count as reading, count as reading. If you don't, you don't. I know there's huge studies out there saying that, the way the audiobooks go through our brain, it basically is like reading a book. I like to count it as a book, but I don't count it as my reading goal. And that's just my preference. I think whatever works for you and however you like to consume your books is the way to do it. And there's no right or wrong, truly. It's what you like, what you love. So for me, it counts as a book, but it doesn't count towards my reading goal for the year, because they're just 2 separate things for me. So on my Goodreads account, I have a special, shelf for my audiobooks, and I do it by year. So last year, 2024 audiobooks, this year, 2025 audiobooks. Anyway, let's get into which ones I read this year. So I started off January with The Paradise Problem by Christina Laura, and I just wrote this down for you guys just because I don't have physical copies of them because I listened to them. Anyway, it follows Anna and West, and they have to pretend to be together to impress West's really billionaire family while they're over in Indonesia for his sister's wedding. I loved it. I ate it up. I thought it was great. I think it was a perfect book for me for January because of Throne of Glass. I needed something fun and funny and happy, and I laughed my butt off at this book. Like, I actually laughed out loud so many times just because the main character, Anna, she's just so funny and spunky, and I really liked her as a character. The next one I listened to was Only Say Good Things, Surviving Playboy and Finding Myself by Crystal Hefner. Before I get into this, I just want to say that with biographies, I like them. I always like listening to them. I do have a hard time though, because sometimes the way they write it sounds so fictional and it sounds so fake. They'll be like, yeah, on this day in 1993, the green grass was blah, 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 and it was blue skies, and I could see the white swans, and I'm just like, no way you remember that, Like, there's no way. And so because it's a biography, I like have a hard time because I'm like, this is it almost seems fictional to me, so they seem fake to me. But I do enjoy them. I've listened to quite a few. I've read a few as well. I prefer listening to them, I think, especially if the author does it in their own voice. I think that's 10 million times better, just because you really kind of get it from their point of view. But for this one, the Playboy Mansion, learned some really interesting things. Like there's a whole Dr. Phil part in there that was like, I was like, whoa, when did Dr. Phil come into the chat, but that was really interesting and kind of disheartening to hear too, to be honest with you. But I really liked it. I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5. Again, just because, and this is no shade to any autobiographies, biographies. It's the way it's fictionalized, I'm just like, I feel like I'm reading fiction. So I don't know, but really enjoyed it. It was a good one to listen to, and it was quick. It wasn't very long. I think it was maybe 6 or 7 hours. So it was a nice book to just like fill in the gap. And then I started Wicked. Now, I want to preface this. I haven't read Wicked. I haven't seen the movie. I really knew not a lot about going into it. I think I would have preferred to read this one. The audiobook, I just found it's written, it's not a modern book, obviously. It's a much older book, and it's written in that time. And that's okay, because I like that. However, I'd never listened to an audiobook like that. Most of the audiobooks I listen to are a little more modern or new. So I think just because of the narration, I had a hard time with it. And I listened to a good 8 hours, and this is a 20-hour audiobook. And truly, I was actually going to visit my friend who lives about 2.5 hours away. And I was like, oh, great, I can get some more time put on this book. And I didn't want to. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to. And I have a hard time DNFing, but this year that's my goal. My book goal is I'm going to DNF books I don't like. I'm not going to just force myself to read them because I'm reading them. So I DNF'd it after 8 hours, which is crazy, but I couldn't do it. I really like the story though, which is odd. Like I was enjoying it, but again, I just think because of the way it's written, when it's narrated as an audiobook, it just doesn't hit the same way as if I had read it myself. So that's why I'm counting my audiobooks as 3.5 and not 3. Because I did put a good chunk into that book. And then the last book I listened to was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I knew nothing about this book going into it. I actually only got it because I use the Libby app a lot for my audiobooks, and it was a skip the line, and it was just like, here's a book you might like. And after the Wicked debacle, I was like, okay, great, let's try this one. I bawled my eyes out, okay? I did not know what this book was about, and I knew, it looked cute and fun from the cover, to be honest with you. And what an amazing story of a brave woman chemist in the 1950s. And when I tell you that I went to the gym early one day, this was last week. And because I got this book on Skip the Line on the Libby app, you only have a week to finish it. So I had to really get in this book. My gym's about 20 minutes away. So I listened on the way there, and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? Like, this is getting sad. What the heck? On the way back, I decided to go get a car wash. When I tell you I'm getting a car wash, and there's, all the bubbles, all the water hitting my car, and I'm inside the car sobbing hysterically. It was like the craziest thing. I had to take a minute to compose myself to drive home. It was, I don't know. I should have expected to be sad, but truthfully, this book deals with a lot about grief that I wasn't expecting. So if that's a subject that you'd find hard, I would maybe stay clear. But this one was a 5-star for me. It's about a chemist in the 1950s who falls in love with another chemist, and it shows how hard she has to work to be taken seriously in a man's dominated world, especially in America in the 1950s. And truly, all the characters were so wonderful and complex and sweet, and it took a different turn than I even expected it to. And then I found out that it's actually already been made into a TV series starring Brie Larson. I'm pretty sure it's on Apple TV or Prime Video in Canada. I don't know about the States. But I'm going to be watching that because this was a 5-star for me and I loved it. Now, I really liked the narrator. She was great. I liked her voice. I liked how she gave the character's death. Like, it was just so good. So good. So highly recommend that one to anyone else. All right, guys. So if you like what you see, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and check out my other videos for all future content. Thanks. Love ya.